Let me try to start by a story, or perhaps by a joke that I once heard from no other than Father Professor Marcel de Bois, who is a Roman Catholic monk in Jerusalem, but was also the head of the Department of Philosophy at the Hebrew University. And he told us the story about a young Israeli couple who went for the first time abroad with their little child. When they arrived in Paris, the child was looking around and he asked, "Who are all these people?" And the father told him, "These are non-Jews, these are Gentiles." A few days later, they arrived in London. The same question, the same answer, "These are non-Jews." A week later, in Amsterdam, "Who are all these people?" "These are Gentiles." So eventually the child said, "I feel pity for the Gentiles. They are dispersed all over the world." I assume that Marcel de Bois wanted to be a little cynical regarding our provincial nature in Israel, but on the other hand, it symbolizes the change or the transformation which has taken place within the Jewish mind, or at least the Israeli mind, after the success of Zionism and the establishment of Israel, of the state of Israel. But I'm going to speak about the consciousness of exile and the period of exile when no Jew could say that the non-Jews are dispersed all over the world. And I would like to analyze and describe the dual nature of the attitude of the Jewish people towards the Holy Land, or the land of Israel, throughout the ages, and in particular in exile. We have to realize that this tension is inherent in the very concept of this land, on the one hand as the Holy Land for the Jews, but on the other hand as the homeland. There is some sort of a contradiction between homeland and Holy Land, between home and holy. At home, I am supposed to untie myself, to have some intimate feelings, very informal. In front of the holy, I am supposed to be very formal, to retreat, to withdraw. Now, usually, when you think about other cultures, and in most cases about other religions, you have the Holy Mountain, or at least the Holy City, but not the Holy Land. For instance, if you are a Muslim, you go to Mecca, to the Holy City for 1 week, then you really behave properly. When you go back home, you behave regularly. Also in the Hebrew Bible, you hear about the Holy Mountain, once in Isaiah about Yerushalayim, Ir HaKodesh, Jerusalem, the Holy City, but you don't read in the Hebrew Bible about the Holy Land. But it seems that since the 2nd century, and in particular in the Mishnah, you read about the Holy Land. And if it's a Holy Land, so it's not one spot, one mountain, one city, but everything around you is supposed to be holy, almost taboo. And the holy is always demanding and sometimes threatening, but it's supposed also to be your home, your homeland, Moledet. We know about some ancient Jewish sects who wouldn't use Jerusalem for biological needs. We read the same in Al-Ghazali in the 12th century regarding Muslims and Mecca. But here it's a whole land which is supposed to be sacred, but on the other hand you are supposed to handle realistic and concrete and actual life in it. So this is the first aspect of the inner tension, which is inherent beyond time and situation. But once we think about the situation of the Jews in exile, namely most of Jewish history, it becomes much more intensified and it is sharpened because of the distance of exile. Let me use an example. Let's imagine that I am going into exile, and perhaps I'm in prison, and I'm separated by force from my beloved wife for 15 years. And I'm still faithful and loyal to her. And every night and every day I'm thinking about her and dreaming about my future returning. And now, after 15 years, I'm liberated. One option is that, yes, immediately I'll run to her. It happened in Zionism. But there is also a very logical opposite option. Namely that since all these years, because of all my dreams and because of my distance, she became so sublime and so much elevated that I'll be afraid to come and meet her and touch her. I'll be afraid of the realization. I'll be afraid of the profanation or the frustration. And if we take our example, not of the beloved wife, but of the beloved homeland, there is a possibility that a consciousness will be created according to which, to the ultimate place, I'll go only in the ultimate time. To the ultimate place, namely the Holy Land, I'll go collectively only in the ultimate time, namely in the future Messianic era. Namely, there is a possibility that the eschatological fear of the religious mind will be developed not only with respect to the future time, but to the concrete place. And if in any case I go there, I dare to go there, it means that I demand for myself a total purification, a total spiritualization, because you cannot go to the holy place within history if you want to behave regularly, normally, only as a kosher, legitimate Jew and not as a pious Jew. So these are the two different aspects of the tension that I would like to try to analyze. On the one hand, the inherent tension of homeland and Holy Land. On the other hand, the tension which was intensified because of the distance of the situation of exile, when it was more elevated and became more and more sublime. According to my impression, this question or this dual phenomenon has not been analyzed scholarly in the studies about Jewish tradition. But there is one person, accidentally in Haifa, a secular Jew, the author Aleph Bet Yehoshua, who felt it. Aleph Bet Yehoshua, in some of his writings, but in particular in his Hagolah HaPitaron HaNeuroti, exile as a neurotic solution, Aleph Bet Yehoshua analyzed, he felt it. He's not a scholar, but he's very sensitive. But according to his description, it is supposed to go as follows. On the one hand, on the conscious level, Jews have been attracted to the land. Longing, love, fascination. This is on the very conscious level. But subconsciously, there was a fear of the encounter or the confrontation with the Holy Land within history. So whenever there is a tremendous gap between your conscious level, love and longing, and your subconscious level, namely fear and retreat, a neurosis is created. And in the paper that Professor Rosen was kind to mention, I was trying to liberate the Jewish people from the neurosis. Namely, I was trying to claim that also the fear was conscious. That I have at least 100 texts, especially from medieval times, in which consciously and explicitly this fear is analyzed and portrayed. I will use today only 3 such texts, very radical and very extreme. Perhaps the most extreme that almost the most extreme that I have in front of myself, but I'll try at least to illustrate the problem by these 3 texts. But let me first of all try to approach it now not only from the particular Jewish point of view, but from the, if you wish, the universal religious point of view. Mircea Eliade, perhaps the professor of religious studies in the previous generation, was trying to describe or portray the very process of sanctification in the religious mind. He was used to speak especially about what we call primitive religions, namely ancient religions, but then he drew a conclusion also with respect to historical or, if you wish, later developed religions. According to Eliade, for the religious mind, before the process of sanctification of a certain place or certain time, the religious person is doomed to live in a chaos. Everything is amorphous. No center, no orientation. Once you sanctify a place which becomes your axis mundi, the center of the world, the metaphysical center of the world, then you endow the whole cosmos with significance or with meaning, because now you have two centers, so if there is center, there is also a periphery. And from now on you have an order. And now you create a cosmos once you have a center in time or in place. And then you can distinguish between the center and the periphery. His student, who accidentally is a Jew, Jonathan Smith, was trying to add one more layer to it. According to Smith, Eliade is right regarding many cultures. Namely, there are many cultures who try to build their cosmos around an holy place. That they want the permanent, the eternal return, that they would like to dwell in a limited world, a centripetal attitude. But then Smith is arguing there is also another option. There are some cultures, and especially religious cultures, which develop a more open attitude. A religious attitude which is trying to overcome borders and paradoxically to underline the periphery and the scope, to underline the possibility of creating new options and new sanctifications. According to Smith, in a local religion, the place is a central religious category. But in a religion in exile in particular, there is some sort of a freedom of the place when you develop the idea of utopia, no place, and not only an eternal return to the place. Now I can say that you can find in exiled Judaism many examples to it when Jerusalem or the Holy Land was spiritualized, sometimes neutralized, sometimes allegorized. For instance, if it's written, "En הנבואה שורה אלא בארץ ישראל," prophecy can dwell only in the land of Israel. So by some sages in the medieval times, it meant not the land of Israel, but the land, namely the body of Israel. Namely, wherever a Jew is going, he or she can become potential prophets, because prophecy can dwell only in the land of Israel. This is my land, and wherever I go, I take sanctity with me. Or for instance, the righteous person is the land of Israel. I quote in Hasidism, or in those of you who are familiar with the present Lubavitch Hasidim, "Aseh kan Eretz Israel." Make this place, namely it can be Lubavitch in Russia, it can be New York, make this place the land of Israel. And we can find many such examples of Saloniki was mentioned as second Jerusalem, but also Vilna was portrayed as a second Jerusalem, etc. But I want to go one step further. Eliade, Smith, and now my humble contribution. I would like to ask myself a different question. What may happen if you are in exile and you don't neutralize Jerusalem and you don't spiritualize the concrete land of Israel? The center is present in your mind existentially and theologically. And according to your commitment and religious belief, there cannot be an alternative. And there cannot be another realization. And the holy place, the holy land, the holy city, the holy mountain are still present in your mind, and they are demanding and threatening in their elevated situation. And moreover, the distance of exile and the destruction of the city of Jerusalem is adding it sometimes some sort of a demonic metaphysical aspect. This is your attitude. You are faithful. You are loyal. And suddenly, the land or going to the land has become an option. In most cases, in most of Jewish history, it was not an option for a collective immigration, collective aliyah. But let's assume that it happens. And it did happen in some generations in Judaism. So you can go there. Or paradoxically, you are within, you dwell there. But you feel that you are in a palace, not at home. Namely, what I am trying to say is that there is a religious consciousness which is the very opposite of that which was described by Eliade. According to Eliade, the given situation is that everything is profane and secular. Then you create an holy center. But there is another option. That since this cosmos was created by God, according to your belief, every place and every moment is holy. And it's very difficult to dwell in this cosmos, in this holy cosmos. So you are trying to, not to sanctify, but to secularize some places where you can really dwell and live regularly and normally. You don't sanctify the profane, but you limit sanctity because you want a normal life. And I would like to claim that it has happened to many Jews in exile. Yes, Jerusalem is holy, but let's limit holiness to Jerusalem and the Holy Land. And let's make Greece and Poland and Morocco normal places where God is not present everywhere in every spot, and there you can live regularly and normally. And because of it, because of the fact that you elevate Jerusalem, the Holy Land, you can make it, it is still on the mountain, but you develop your life in exile as normal and regular life. I'll give you one very vivid example. In the 2nd century of Hasidism, 18th century, the Maggid Memezrich, he says that sometimes it is easier to get the Holy Spirit or to hear the voice of the Lord in exile much more than in the Holy Land. How come? If you want to meet the king, he says, if you want to meet him in his palace, nobody would allow you, and you have to go through so many halls and so many guardians, and eventually if you meet him, you are so much afraid that you will not be able to speak. But let's imagine that the king and his servants are going, to the forest, letzayid. How do you say tzayid? To hunting. Thank you. And he is in his very simple and regular dress. Then you can jump and speak to the king and ask him something. So paradoxically, because of the fact that in exile, outside of the Holy Land, God, namely the king, is not in his palace, it's easier to approach him. But in Jerusalem, who can approach the king? So now I'll go back to Judaism. After trying to locate the problem in more universal terms. In Jewish tradition, there are 4 causes of attraction, of love, of longing towards the Holy Land and the Holy City. One is very simple. Namely, there are many commandments, religious commandments, that can be fulfilled only in the Holy Land. So once a Jew is living, a religious Jew, has been living outside the Holy Land, he or she, they could realize their religious life only partially, only some fragments of it. So you are attracted to go to the Holy Land to achieve richer religious life. Try to imagine, for instance, that a Jew could sleep every week from Friday afternoon until the end of Saturday. I assume there is no religious prohibition against it, but certainly since he doesn't have Saturday, namely the holiday, he or she would miss a lot of the intensive religious life since you are asleep on Shabbat and Saturday. The same was conceived regarding the holy, not only the holy time, but the holy place. If you miss it, many significant parts of your religious life cannot be realized, implemented, and fulfilled. The second cause of attraction, and in a minute I'll show that every cause or reason of attraction has become also a reason and a cause for retreat and fear and distancing yourself from it. But first of all, the four causes or reasons for attraction. So I mentioned mitzvot atluyot ba'aretz, the commandments that can be fulfilled only in the land. Secondly, the very simple religious attraction towards the holy, towards the sacred. Those of you who remember that immediately after 67, when Israel conquered all Jerusalem, many Jews wanted to live as close to the Temple Mount and the Wailing Wall as possible. So immediately the Jewish quarter was established very near to the Temple Mount, because these were religious Jews who wanted to come as close as possible to the sacred place. So, commandments and the feeling of holiness. Thirdly, the land of Israel, or the Holy Land in the Jewish mind, has not been portrayed only as a place for the individual realization, but also for the collective realization of the people, for a political realization of the people, for a historical religious realization of the people. And therefore, since whenever Jews were trying to dream about their collective realization, immediately the land of Israel has come into mind. Maimonides, the most political thinker in Jewish history, has made it very clear. Maimonides doesn't speak so much about the land of Israel independently. When does it happen that he is using all the classical texts, all the midrashim regarding the beauty of the land of Israel and regarding its advantages? In Hilchot Melachim, in his laws of kings, namely in his political, in his codification of Jewish politics. Once he thinks about the Jewish politea, so immediately where is it going to take place? In Uganda? No, in the Holy Land. So now he is reminded about the Holy Land, so he would speak about the advantages and beauty of the Holy Land. So the Holy Land for him is a function of the political sovereignty of the Jewish people. So I mentioned three causes: commandments, rich life, the attraction towards the holy place, towards holiness, the collective realization, the national fulfillment of the people, and finally, something which cannot be rationalized, the emotions, the longings, the prayers, all the poems which were written about the Holy Land. Now, each of these four aspects has become also a cause of retreat and fear and withdrawal.
התוכנית משודרת בחסות סיליקון.
I have translated every Jewish text, every medieval Jewish text into English because it will make it easier for us. I assume that I'm going to speak in Hebrew, but now I'll read it directly in English. So, first of all, the first cause of attraction was the commandments. Namely, only in the land of Israel I can have a rich life. On the other hand, is it possible for me to perform all these difficult commandments which are directly connected to the Holy Land? My grandfather, my holy grandfather, he lived in Poland and he didn't have to perform it. And my grandfather perhaps, and grandmother perhaps they lived in Spain before the expulsion of the Jews, and they didn't have to perform it. Suddenly me, the humble person, can I go there before the Messianic era and accept upon myself all these demands? We have to realize that for Jews, the Messiah has not come. And it's a pre-Messianic era. Since people are distributing it, let me tell you something. I once had a long discussion with the rector of the Mormon University in Jerusalem. And he, you know, they have a very fundamentalistic attitude towards the Bible, and he showed me the Mount of Olives. According to Zechariah, the mount will be split into two parts. And eventually I told him, we don't have to argue. We are waiting for the future coming of the Messiah. When he comes, we'll ask him, is it your first coming or second coming? So for Jews, since it is a pre-Messianic era, there has been always a fear that perhaps I don't deserve it. And perhaps if I go there, I'll commit sins. I will not be able to perform it and I'll be very rigidly punished. Let me read you a text from the 13th century by the most important Jew in Germany and France this time, Rabbi Meir of Rothenburg, Abraham Rothenburg, when he was asked by some Jews, shall we go to the Holy Land? The beginning of the 13th century. So paradoxically his answer was, yes, you should go. But now listen to the conditions, and we shall ask ourselves, who is going to be so brave to go there after these threatening words? Number one, if you go there, you are allowed to go. It's very good that you go. But let him be abstinent in the land and beware of any transgression. For if one sins there, one will be punished most severely, much more than in Greece or in Morocco or in Poland. For God supervises the land and watches over its inhabitants. It's very interesting. It's a paraphrase of a biblical saying, Eretz asher enei Hashem Elohecha ba, tamid enei Hashem Elohecha ba. God is watches. But when I grew here in the land of Israel as a child, I was sure that since God is looking here, He is defending us, He is protecting us. But here you see, no. The great brother is looking at you every minute, so be very careful. It's not anymore a defending and protecting aspect, but something very threatening. In this place, God is supervising the land and watches over its inhabitants. He who rebels against the king from within the king's palace, namely the Holy Land, is not the same as he who rebels outside it. So you want to go? I recommend that you go, but be very careful. And then this is the meaning of a land that consumes its inhabitants. This sounds very strange, because originally in the Bible, those who said Eretz ochelet yoshvea were the spies. It was illegitimate. Now these are not the spies, the illegitimate, those who betrayed the land of Israel, but it is the greatest scholar of the generation. For them it was a physical fear of the enemies. Now it has become a metaphysical fear. Perhaps we don't deserve it and will commit sins. So from now on, for Jews, it may become a land which consumes its inhabitants. But yes, go. But who is going to be brave enough to go after such a warning? And for those who go there and think they can get away with levity and reckless contentiousness, I would invoke the verse from Jeremiah, but you came and defied my land, and from Isaiah, who asked of you to trample my carts. So we see very clearly how the first cause of attraction and longing could paradoxically become a cause of retreat and running away from it. Let me move to the second aspect. And I want to make it very clear. These are not, the Jewish texts. Against each of these texts, I can show you 100 of opposite texts. But a scholar is supposed to say something new. So if I came here and tell you that all the Jews in exile were longing and loving, and there was a tremendous love of the Jews, I would be right. But I wouldn't get any prize. I must say something new, which is hidden. So I don't want, a mistake to be created here. What I'm underlining here is latent, sometimes marginal and peripheral. But whenever the state of the land of Israel has become a real option, you could find, among other scholars, warning and a call for retreat. Let's take the second cause of attraction. I mentioned earlier, the Jewish quarter near the Temple Mount after 67. But on the other hand, there is a classical fear to come to the holiest place. The grandmother of my wife, who was an ultra-Orthodox Jew, she immigrated to Israel in 1949. They were living in Ramat Gan. For more than a year, she refused to go to Jerusalem because she said, a simple person like me, I'll go to Jerusalem. But for many Jews, it has happened in exile. Simple people as us, are we going to the Holy Land? And I'm going to quote to you a text again from the 13th century, which is the most radical text that I am aware of in Jewish tradition. So again, don't take it as an example of Jewish tradition, but it is also Judaism. It is Judaism as well. At the beginning of the 13th century, the land of Israel has become an option because of many historical reasons. And there was even a huge, for these times, a collective immigration of scholars from France, Aliyat Baalei HaTosafot, according to some traditions, 300 scholars and all their families and their followers. 40 or 50 kilometers from it, perhaps a little more. In Germany, there was Hasidei Ashkenaz, German Hasidim, who became very much afraid from this fact that before the coming of the Messiah, so many Jews are going collectively to the land of Israel. And a very creative sermon was written by the leader of Ashkenaz, of German Hasidim those days, Rabbi Eliezer of Würzburg, for those of you are familiar with the names, the grandson of Rabbi Yehuda Hasid. He takes the verses in Exodus regarding the revelation on Sinai, when Moses is telling the people, don't come close to the mountain. If you come close to the Mount of Sinai, you will be killed. But now the Mount of Sinai is not anymore the Mount of Sinai, but every mount in the land of Israel. The land of Israel is the place of revelation permanently. Let's read it. You shall limit the people round about. Moses said it in Exodus. Now the interpretation, around Jerusalem and the land of Israel. Take heed to yourselves lest you not go up into the mountain. Moses. His interpretation, for he, God, has adjured Israel not to force the end and not to go up to the land prematurely. Now the land is like Sinai. Exile is historical reality. The land of Israel is a meta-historical utopia. Don't mix them. You are in historical exile. Don't mix it with the meta-historical utopia. Let's go on. Take heed to yourself, lest you not go up into the mountain. Into the mountain, this is the land of Israel and the Temple Mount. And don't touch its edge. Its edge, the end. Here it's a play with the words. לא לגעת בקצה, in the edge, is in Hebrew also קץ, the end with capital letter. So if you try to touch the edge of the land of Israel, it is as if you touch the end of time with capital letter. Whoever touches the mountain shall surely die, Moses said. His interpretation, whoever hastens to go up to the land shall surely die. No hand shall touch it, for he shall be stoned. Interpretation, whoever goes up before the end will be stoned, for while the exile persists, they shall not go free. And finally, and when the horn sounds long, they shall ascend the mountain. Moses, his interpretation, this horn means the horn of the Messiah in the future. When shall the people of Israel leave the exile to ascend to the land? When the horn shall be blown long, namely the horn of the Messiah. So we see here the second aspect, that to touch the end of the land of Israel means to touch the end of time. To the ultimate place, you're allowed to go only when you reach the ultimate time. And here the Temple Mount has expanded to the whole Holy Land. Finally, what was the third cause of attraction? I spoke about the collective realization of the people, the political, religious fulfillment of the Jewish people. Politeia, Maimonides. Yes, for most Jews, it was a cause of attraction. But for some of them, and again, I'm going to read a very, very radical texts, and most of the texts are not so, even those who have reservations regarding the immigration are not so radical, but I wanted to make it clear and to make it sharp. So let me read another radical text regarding the possibility of a collective immigration to the land before the miraculous coming of the Messiah. I'm going to read Rabbi Yonatan Eibschitz around 1700. I jump here about from historical place to another, from historical time to another, but Professor Mina Rosen can testify that in the paper that I wrote, I was trying to analyze it also according to the historical discipline. The congregation of Israel shouted out their vow, lest you arouse and awaken the love. It's in the Song of Songs. Don't arouse the love before the right time. And by the sage, the rabbis, it was not an interaction between a boy and a girl, but between God and the people of Israel, who is supposed to be the female. So if it's written, don't arouse and awake the love before the time, it was interpreted against the ingathering of Israel. Because the ingathering of Israel means to arouse the love of God, namely redemption before the fortunate moment. For even if the whole people of Israel is prepared to go to Jerusalem, let's imagine that all the Jews are gathered in Vienna, and they are waiting for El Al airplanes to take them. And even if all the nations consent, Gaddafi and Saddam Hussein, all of them are trying to help. Nevertheless, it is absolutely forbidden to go there, because the end is unknown. Perhaps it's not the right time. And perhaps this is the wrong time. Indeed, tomorrow or the next day, they might sin in the Holy Land, and will yet again need to go into exile, heaven forbid. And the later exile will be, God forbid, harsher than the former. Therefore, the congregation of Israel besieged until it shall please. אל תאירו ואל תעוררו את האהבה עד שתחפץ. That is to say, until the time comes when the entire world shall be filled with no knowledge of the Lord. According to Isaiah, in the Messianic era, מלאה הארץ דעה את השם כמים לים מכסים, the world will be filled with knowledge of the Lord. So according to Rabbi Yonatan Eifshitz, it seems that we would be able to perform Zionism only when in Cambodia and in Vietnam the knowledge of the monotheistic God will be widespread. Namely, what has happened here? Two dangers. First of all, we have been expelled because of an ethical religious sin. As long as there is sin in the world, we cannot go. Secondly, the apocalyptic fear of the end with capital letter. Now, before I conclude, I repeat, this is not Judaism. It is one aspect of Judaism, not the most important and dominant one, but it is also Judaism. And if one wants to understand the ultra-Orthodox opposition to Zionism, I believe that this is the real root. Not the fact that Zionism, certainly at the beginning, was secular. Yes, it was important. But a deeper cause is the fear of the place, of the ultimate place, and the fear of the ultimate time. But since I'm afraid that you will run away from this place, because Haifa is also the land of Israel, not only Jerusalem, where I come from, I'll conclude by another quotation that you don't have, which can illustrate the paradoxical development of the idea. Rabbi Avraham Azulai, the same 17th century, in Zefat, a community of pious Jews, of pious in Zefat, Rabbi Yosef Karo, Rabbi Chaim Vital, and Rabbi Avraham Azulai. And now he's saying the following. כל הדר בארץ ישראל נקרא צדיק. Everybody who dwells in the land of Israel should be called a righteous person. הגם שהוא אינו כפי הנראה לעיניים. Even if, according to the way you see me, perhaps you think that I'm not a righteous person. But you're wrong. כי אם לא היה צדיק, הייתה הארץ מקיאו. If he was not a righteous person, the land would throw him outside. וכיוון שהארץ אינו מקיאו, since the land doesn't throw him outside, בהכרח הוא שנקרא צדיק. Necessarily, we should conclude that he is a tzaddik, a righteous person, אף שהוא בחזקת רשע, even if according to our eyes, he is supposed to be a wicked person. What has happened here? Yes, on the one hand, the land is very threatening. It's a holy place. To dwell there, it's very dangerous. But you see, we live there. Since we live there, and the land doesn't throw it outside, והארץ לא מקיאו, והארץ היא לא ארץ אוכלת יושעה, it doesn't consume its inhabitants, so it means that if we can maintain our life within the holy place, that we are a righteous person. So here the fear, paradoxically, is defending us and protecting us. So the dialectic of the human mind, and certainly of the religious mind, is almost infinite, and I believe also fascinating. Thank you.
השידורים בחסות הארץ, לא מה שחשבת. ביחידה ללימודי חוץ של אוניברסיטת חיפה, לימודי תעודה במגוון תחומי לימוד. היחידה ללימודי חוץ של אוניברסיטת חיפה, היחידה המובילה בלימודי תעודה. 04-8249-111.
I met Einstein in a dream. Springtime on Princeton lawn grass. I kneeled down and kissed his young thumb like a ruddy pope. His face fresh, broad-cheeked, rosy. I invented a universe separate, something like a virgin